Hello, welcome or welcome back to the YarnNYarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet and weaving, all of the fibre related things. In today's video I am going to be sharing with you my making wrap up, and this will be detailing some of the things that I've worked on really throughout November, December and January, because it's been quite a while since I have done a wrap-up video. It got really busy at the end of last year. I was working 2 jobs, and then we had Vlogmas, and then at the start of this year we had the 12 cast-ons, so I just really didn't find the time to sit and chat to you about what I've been making. So I'm quite pleased to be able to get back to this, and hopefully I will now get back to it on a monthly basis. I've got knitting, crochet and spinning to share with you today. Before we get into all that good stuff, I've got 2 things. So first, I'm wearing my Radiate sweater by Locatelli today. I'm trying to get better in the habit of when I do these sit down chatty videos telling you what I'm wearing, because I'm getting asked about that more and more now. So it's the Radiate by Locatelli, and I knit mine from a combination of a beautiful yarn. I think it was a Blue Face Leicester from Owl About Yarn, one of my lovely friends and a local indie dyer, and I paired that with some commercial yarn. This was a Debbie Bliss yarn, it's escaping me, Debbie Bliss double knit, I can't remember the exact base. I've had this sweater for quite some time now. I've made it quite a few years ago and I wear it all of the time, and I would really like to make another Radiate at some point. It says a lot really for the pattern, I think. For me it's quite a big undertaking, and yeah, I'm usually a one and done kind of person, but for this one I definitely have plans to knit another one in the future, and I'd like to maybe do the contrast colour in some of my hand spun yarn, so that's definitely on the agenda at some point. When I've got time, because you know I have all the time in the world and I don't have nearly 30 works in progress on the go. No, not at all, not me. The other thing that I would like to quickly mention before we get into before we get into the making goodness, I've got so many. This is where I keep my works in progress, the project bags, and there's so many crammed in there. Let's put it down there, that they're jostling for space in there. Right, back on track. I have a favour to ask you. Under my last making plans video, so if you followed the channel for a while you'll know that I post a video at the beginning of every month detailing what I'm going to be working on over the coming weeks, and it's just a way for me to try and wrangle all of these works in progress that I've got and focus on a couple of things for the month. And under the last making plans video, one of our community members, Beverly, asked if there was a way in which I could get the community involved and get someone out there to choose a project for me to work on. And I thought this was a great idea. I do have in my prompts list, so I roll a dice and I pick out 4 random prompts based on the dice rolls to help me choose my projects. And in amongst those prompts I do have a YouTube picks prompt, and that has come up several times over the years that I've been doing this, and I usually ask for the community to choose between 2 projects. But I think what Beverly was actually getting at in her comment was whether I could ask a specific person to pick my project, and this sounds like quite a fun idea to me, so I'm going to try and do that for March. We'll see how successful it is, and if there's interest in it and if people think it's a fun idea, then I will carry it on. So what I'm going to ask you to do is in the comments below this video, because this should then give a couple of weeks for everyone to comment if they want to, and then give me time to use a randomizer to pick someone and have a chat with them about it before my making plans video for March goes up on the channel. So I'd like you to let me know either just by commenting separately, or by if you were going to make a comment on the video anyway, just include a little sentence somewhere to say that you would be happy to pick a project for me to work on. Of course, if there's a lot of interest, I'm not going to be able to pick everyone, because that defeats the idea of narrowing down my focus for the month. But what I will do is I think I will put everyone who might be interested in picking one of my projects into a randomizer and get the randomizer to choose one person, and then I will reach out to that person and ask them to pick a project for me to work on throughout March. So it could be something that I've already got on the needles, it could be something from this year's 12 cast-ons that we've just done, it could be something from the archive, if you've got access to Ravelry, you'll be able to see all of my current works in progress. Maybe you're just familiar with a particular project that has been hanging around on my needles for ages that you'd really like to see me work on, or perhaps you want to see me cast on something new. Maybe you've got a favourite pattern, or even a pattern that you like the look of but you don't want to make yourself. You could ask me to do that instead. You could inflict that on me. Literally anything goes. So if that sounds like it might be fun to you, then just leave a little comment or addition to your comment to say that you would be happy to pick my project. We'll just give it a try and see what happens, basically. Okay, so with all of that being said, let's get on to the making. I think I will start with crochet today because I've only got one project to chat to you about, and if you happened to watch any of the Vlogmas series, you would have seen this project getting started. It is still a work in progress, and it's a blanket project, so it's going to be a work in progress for quite some time, I would imagine. Throughout December I did a little mini skein swap with a lovely group of friends, and I decided to crochet some granny squares with the mini skeins that were sent to me. So I have a nice little stack of squares that I made throughout December, and again, if you watched Vlogmas you might have seen some of these in the making, some of them being finished. But each day I took the mini skein that was in my little advent swap and I crocheted 4 mini squares, or as many mini squares as I could get out of the skein. We didn't have a sort of hard and fast rule as to what size of mini skein we were swapping, so some of them were kind of 5 or 6 grams, some of them were more like 10 grams. So there were a couple, like this one was from Ruth, and Ruth sent some beautiful handspun. This lovely lighter blue is Ruth's handspun yarn, but you might be able to tell I was able to get 2.5 squares out of that beautiful handspun, but then I just paired it with something else that I thought would either match nicely or contrast nicely to finish off my sort of 4 patch squares. And then I went round the edge, I did the join as you go method and used some opal sock yarn in the anthracite colourway just to border the squares. So I have all of these finished and haven't actually counted them. I have been busy sharing the squares as I've chatted away. So I've got 14 finished squares. I've got another couple in progress where I crocheted up what I had from various yarns but then ran out. So for this one I've got 3 and a bit. This one was a thicker yarn and I ended up with just 1 and a bit squares. So I need to find some leftovers in my leftover basket to go with those so that I can then add the borders and finish those squares. And I also have just received some new minis for that swap. One package went astray in December and ended up being returned to the person who'd sent it out. So I've just received some new mini skeins to add to my project bag, and I'll be ready to go back and work on that when time permits, or when the dice rolls dictate that I work on a little bit of crochet. I loved working on that throughout December. I was doing quite a few train journeys, just popping into Cardiff for work, and so that was just a really nice project to keep me company on the train. A little bit of crochet every day, and yeah, I just, yeah, really enjoyed it. I did think about starting a knitted blanket, but in the end I just went with a simple granny square, and that was the absolute perfect decision for that time. And I will continue to work on that over the coming years. I've got lots of leftovers and some beautiful mini skeins that have been sent to me in various packages, in swaps and things, so I will just continue to make more squares as I have the time, the inclination to do so, until I have a blanket. And I've got no idea at the moment what sort of size blanket I want. At this point in time I've made several blankets throughout my making career. I've got knitted, I've got crocheted, I've got double bed size, I've got single bed size, so I think this one will probably just be a keep going until you're sick of the sight of the project. And however big that blanket is, that's how big the blanket's going to be. Now for a little bit of spinning, I think. So I have finished quite a few spins in the last few months, and I've also got quite a few spins ongoing. So let's chat about the two spins that are, no, the 3 spins. Have I got 3? Yes, 3 spins that are finished. Should have another skein somewhere. I don't know where it's gone. Anyway, the first spin that I finished was this beauty, which is from fibre that I purchased at Wonderwall last year from Hilltop Cloud, and this was a mix of, let me put, Corriedale, Yak and Rose, and this was a spin that was chosen for me by our lovely Patreon community. So if you followed for a while, you'll know that I have a cart. I'm looking over there because it's just over there. I have a 3-tiered wheelie cart. I have filled that up with various fibres that are either I want to spin because they're recent-ish purchases, or for the most part they're fibres that were gifted to me. And every time I'm ready to start a new spin from the cart, over the last few months I've been popping up a poll on Patreon. I've been randomly picking 2 braids of fibre or 2 quantities of fibre from that cart, and then getting the Patreon community to vote on which they would like to see me spin, and then I make a dedicated spinning vlog which I share on Patreon. And for December, the lovely Patreon community picked this fibre for me, and it was quite a challenging spin because of the fibre content. The Corriedale, Yak and Silk, they're all slightly different staple lengths, which make for a slightly more challenging spin. I also decided to challenge myself by spinning across the top, which means I'm just holding the whole braid and I'm going backwards and forwards across the top of the fibre rather than stripping the braid down. And that's a technique that is not my favourite. I've only done it a couple of times. I find it quite unwieldy, but as with everything, it's just something that becomes easier with practice. And I decided to spin across the top to keep the colour progression as dyed in the braid, and I ended up chain plying the yarn, and this is the finished yarn. There are definitely some inconsistencies in this yarn, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And as part of the vlog that I did for Patreon, I actually knitted a swatch up as well, and I love how the colours were working up in the knitted swatch. I have since undone the swatch and wound up the yarn back into the skein because you know, I've only got 100 grams of this, a small quantity. I was just making the swatch as part of the process of that Patreon video. Yeah, I have no idea what this is going to become. It's a reasonably sturdy yarn. I think it might make a nice hat or maybe some mitts. So yeah, I will just ruminate in my stash for a little while, I think, until the perfect project comes along. That's what happens with a lot of my handspuns. So yeah, I purchased this, did I say? I purchased this from Wonderwall last year. It was in the bargain bucket at the Hilltop Cloud stand, and it was just the colours and the fibre blend that spoke to me, because I'd never really spun with yak before. So yeah, I'm glad that I have done that and I have finished that braid from my cart. For 2023, I have decided to participate in Tracy from the Passionate Spinner. I will link Tracy's channel below. Tracy is hosting a 23 in 2023 make along, and the idea is to take 23 unfinished projects or projects that you started before the 1st of January 2023, and the idea is to just gather up some of those projects and get them finished throughout the year. And anything in the creative world basically counts, so you can spin, knit, crochet, weave, embroider, sew, like literally anything that you've got that's a work in progress that you want to finish up will count for this make along. In January I managed to finish 2 things for the 23 in 23, and the Hilltop Cloud was one because I started that in December, so that absolutely counts. And then in January I went round and I gathered up a whole bunch of singles that I'd been spinning on various spindles and decided to ply those up and count those as one of my projects for 23 in 23. So I've got these 2 yarns, and actually I've got a small mini skein somewhere else in the ether. I've lost it, which I also counted. I'll try and pop a picture up, I think, of the 3 spins that I finished, and this is going to count as one project in 23 in 23. So I have this Corriedale Sari Silk and Angelina fibre, and I blended up some Rolags on my blending board. This was one of the first Rolag projects that I made when I got my blending board, and the Rolags have just been hanging around. I think I gifted some to a friend, and the rest of the Rolags have just been hanging around waiting to be spun, so I decided to pick up a spindle and start spinning, which I did in December, and then I had all of the plying left to do, so I did that in January. And I've ended up with 42 grams, 140 metres of a 2-ply yarn. All spindle spun and then plied on my e-spinner, and I spun these on one of my Turkish spindles. This beast of a skein, I've actually got 2 little skeins hanging out here. This was just a joy to spin, and I support spindle spun this, and if I remember I'll try and put a picture of my full up support spindles with all of the singles on there. And this was a lovely braid of fibre that was gifted to me in a package from Kathy, one of our community members. Kathy comments as Mountain Pearl here, and a couple of years ago Kathy sent me a selection of different braids of fibre. She also sent me some yarn, and this was the last of the fibre that she sent me that I hadn't yet spun up, and it was a mystery braid in these gorgeous orangey autumnal colours, which absolutely my favourite, of course, but the mystery is I have no idea what the blend was. I am going to assume that it might have been a wool bamboo, but I don't know for sure. But it's made this beautiful silky shiny yarn. So I spun all the singles on my support spindles, and then I wound them off the spindles into little cakes of yarn, and I did a traditional 3-ply on my e-spinner. And the reason I plumped for the 3-ply was because these singles turned out so finely, and the last couple of spins that I've done on my support spindles, the singles have been super fine. And I'm knitting a lace weight yarn at the moment as one of my 12 cast-ons that I spun on my support spindles. So I wanted to try and avoid this being a lace weight if possible by doing a traditional 3-ply, and it's still come out on the fine end of fingering weight or 4-ply yarn. It gets very confusing when I say 4-ply when I'm doing my hand spinning, because it's not 4-ply, but that's just how here in the UK we refer to fingering weight yarn, sock weight yarn. So yeah, the main skein is a traditional 3-ply, 85 grams, 378 metres, so yeah. And then when I ran out of enough to do the traditional 3-plies, I didn't want to do a chain ply, so I decided to make a little mini skein out of 2-plies, and that is 7 grams and 42 metres. So yeah, I really love the silkiness and the drape of this yarn, and the colours are just absolutely glorious. So that was another one that I spun up towards the end of last year, and then I plied in January. So all of those lovely finished hand spun skeins count towards my 23 in 23. So that's not a bad start. Obviously 23 projects to finish across the year means an average of about 2 projects a month. So far 2 projects finished in January. I needed to get my skates on because we're well into February now as I'm recording this, and I haven't yet finished a project. So yeah. If you'd like to know more about the make along, and it's not too late to participate yourself if you've got lots of unfinished projects, particularly in, you know, multi-crafts hanging around, then please do go and check out Tracy's channel, and as I said, I'll have that linked below. Before we leave spinning, I've got one more project to chat to you about, and again, if you watched my Vlogmas videos, you will know that I did a fibre swap with my friend Lisa, and we swapped 24 packages of 20 grams of fibre each day, and I had what Lisa determined was a bat vent from Lisa. So she'd made more or less 24 bats on her drum carder to gift to me, and I opened them up, and it was just again the same with my yarn swap advent. It was just like a little moment of joy in my days, just opening up these packages throughout December and bringing a little bit of cheer into those long dark days. And so ever since, I have been working on my fibre quantities from the advent, and again I've decided to make this a support spindle project because support spindling is my absolute favourite thing. I have, from my advent so far, 4 finished quantities of yarn. So here are the 4 that I finished, and these happen to be from the first 4 days of the advent swap. And every day in December I try to do at least 15 minutes a day of spinning on my bats, and I tried to do at least 15 minutes a day on the bat that I opened that day. At least as far as I could, because I ran out of spindles. I do have a lot of spindles in my collection, but I don't have 24. It's getting close, but I don't quite have 24. Those are the skeins that I finished, and I'm slowly just working through filling up my spindles again. Every day I'm trying to stick to that 15 minutes a day, and I've got the next 4 days worth of singles spun up. And at some point when all of my spindles are full again, I shall wind these off and ply them up. So maybe that will happen before the end of February, but I've got a few spindles free at the moment, so I'm just going through until I've got no free spindles, and then I wind these off. And for the most part, again, I'm just doing a 2-ply yarn, and it's taking roughly 2 spindles to work through each 20-gram bat. So yeah, that's the majority of the spinning that's been happening over the last couple of months. The other project that I don't have with me is the Love Note spin that I've been working on since not 2022 but 2021's 12 cast-ons. I decided to knit a Love Note, and I was quite slow at my spinning last year, but this year, again, inspired by the 23 in 23, but also by the 15-minute spin a day challenge hosted by the 1764 shepherdess over on Instagram, I have been working for 15 minutes a day roughly on my spinning wheel to try and work through my Love Note spin. And for that project I've already in January spun as much as I did for the whole of 2022. So yeah, I am excited that that one is moving along, and hopefully within the next month or 2 I will actually be at the point where I can ply that yarn one step closer to knitting another Love Note, and this one from my hand spun. So yeah, let's hope I can keep the impetus up on that one. And then of course we have arrived at knitting for the last few months. So I've got a few finished objects to share with you and a couple of works in progress. First off, socks. Back in December I finished up a few socks for charity that I converted from some sock tubes that had been cranked by my lovely friend Charlie, and I'm trying to work through the last of the cranked sock tubes, and I will be donating those socks to charity. I don't have those socks to share with you because I've packaged them up and they're ready to send off. I just haven't managed to take them to the post office yet. But if you watch the beginning of Vlogmas, you might have seen the last few pairs of those being made. I also finished one more pair of socks, and these are for me. And I started these, I can't even remember when, but I stock this yarn in the YarnNYarns shop. It's the unique sock yarn from YarnNYarns, and they make all sorts of fun sort of self-striping yarn in that particular brand. And this particular yarn is called Orange Gigi and it was designed in collaboration with the lovely Gigi from Gigi Made It on Instagram. And you might know Gigi, she is the queen of orange in the knitting world, and of course, as you know, orange is also my favourite colour, so I couldn't help but cast these on. So I have a pair of these. One of my sock blockers has gone walkabout, so I've only got one on the blocker to show you, but I do have 2 socks. And I loved working with this yarn. It's super soft. It already comes pre-wound in 2 50-gram cakes so that you can get yourself a lovely pair of matching socks. And I loved working with this yarn so much. I've got a few balls of this particular colourway left in the YarnNYarns shop if anyone should be interested. But I enjoyed working with the unique sock yarn so much I knit another pair of socks from one of the other self-striping colourways. Now I don't have a picture of those socks, but they were gifted to a lovely friend. I've just come back from a weekend away with a group of my lovely friends, and every year we do like a secret swap. And this year I knitted a pair of socks for Catherine, and I don't have a picture of those. I think Ruth took a picture of our feet together at some point, because it turned out that Catherine was knitting for me and I was knitting for Catherine. So yeah, that was a fun coincidence. But I did end up knitting another pair of socks from the Unique Sock yarn, and it's such a fun self-striping yarn. And with a lot of the other colourways, it's kind of a gradual self-striping. In the colourway that I knit for Catherine, there was like a section of blue and green, blue and green, blue and green, and then it changed to something like red and orange, red and orange, and you get several sort of stripes. So it's a very gradual, slow sort of change of stripes, but they make for a really, really fun pair of socks, and it's super soft yarn. So I enjoyed knitting both of those, and I'm just sorry that I only have one pair to share with you, because I'm rubbish at remembering to take photos of my finished objects these days. And then the next two finished objects I will quickly mention here, but there are vlogs about them up on the channel. There are 12 cast on making vlogs. One you would have already seen sort of being flashed as I share things on this video, my Varia mitts, and I wear these all of the time, and it's a super cold day here in February, and it's extra cold up here in the craft attic. So yeah, I've got these on to help keep me warm, and these were one of my 12 cast on projects from 2021, and I will link the making vlog up above or down below somewhere for you to check out the evolution of that project if you're interested. The second project that was also part of my 12 cast ons and has its own vlog is the Driftlines cowl. And again, I'm not going to sit here and chat about that too much, because there is a whole vlog dedicated to this project if you are interested in checking it out. And it's a really warm, squishy, lovely, big, oversized cowl that I have really enjoyed wearing on a couple of the cold days that we've had this winter. It's just so snuggly and warm. But again, if you want to know more about that project, I shall link the relevant video up above, down below, somewhere, for you to hop back and check it out if you would like to do so. One more finished object to share with you, and then a couple more works in progress. And this is quite a big one, and it was on the needles for a long time, and it's my Ultra sweater, which is a pattern by Skein Knits, and I finished this in December. I had a little spate of trying to finish up a few things in December, so again, if you followed the Vlogmas videos, you may have already seen this. And I knit this from a combination of my hand spun yarn, which is the orange contrast, and then I used some nettle sock yarn from YarnNYarns for the main colour, the main sort of black, sort of charcoal grey colour. I would say black, but I'm not sure if it's a 100% sort of pure black. I would be wearing it, but for one thing, because this project gave me so much trouble for various reasons. And again, if you followed the videos, you will have heard me complaining about the project. Not the pattern as such, it's just this fit for me, just there were so many things that didn't quite work out. I ended up knitting the sleeve length to pattern. I thought I was trying on the sleeves as I went, but obviously I wasn't doing a very good job of that, and I ended up with sleeves that were like inches too long, so I had to rip back. It now looks like these arms are really short, but this is quite an oversized drop shoulder construction, so these now fit down to sort of bracelet length. The main problem with this was the neckline, and there's not too much I can do to change the shape of the neckline, because you start with a particular construction at the top of this sweater, which means that it's difficult to make any adjustments. I ended up settling on doing an I-cord around the neck, but this neck is still really quite tight to get on over my head, and I don't think I have the biggest head in the world. I went to wear this the other day, and lo and behold, I don't know if you can see that, the I-cord has just popped away from the rest of the knitting, and I have no idea why it's done that, how it would have done that, other than the pure sort of pressure that it goes through when I get it over my head, because as I say, it's just a really tight fit. And if you followed along with the channel for a while, you'll know that I knit and re-knit this neckline several times, and I'm just kind of sick of the sight of it now. Which is a shame, because it's a really lovely sweater. It's a lovely oversized drop shoulder fit construction, which I like. It's just the neckline is really high. It really cuts me across the neck. There's not anything else that I can think of that I could really do to adjust it. As I say, it's down to how you start the pattern and the construction. And then when I went to put it on and my I-cord had just popped open, that was kind of the last straw for me, really. So what I think I'm actually going to do is, you know, immediately I was like, oh no, I need to rip out the I-cord and do this I-cord again in this black yarn, which is really hard to see with my old lady eyes. But actually, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but when I hold it up, I can actually see the live stitches under there from the row of rib or the couple of rows of rib that I left in. So I think I'm actually just going to pick those up and sew them to the I-cord, because this part of the sweater is intact. It hasn't like run or slipped down. This part of the I-cord is intact, and yeah, I think I'm just going to fudge it and sew it. This is at the back of the neck. No one's going to see it. It's black yarn. If I do a neatish job, then I can do a repair rather than rip out that whole neckline again. I mean, it's only a small neckline, as I keep mentioning. I'm just kind of done. Done with that project. Me and that project just need a little bit of separation time, and then I'm sure next autumn, because it's a 4-ply sweater, so it's a slightly lighter, more of a transitional piece, I'm sure next autumn we will become best of friends, but we need a little bit of a break right now. So that brings us to the final little section, which is the works in progress that I concentrated on for the last couple of weeks of January. I'm not going to chat about all of the projects that I worked on in January, because that includes my 12 cast-ons. But once the 12 cast-on frenzy was over, I decided to just pick 2 projects to concentrate on. And the first of those was one of my new cast-ons. So on day 9 of the 12 cast-ons this year, I started a mitten advent calendar, which is a pattern by Kathy Lewinsky, and it's for 24 of these kind of mini mitts that you then kind of use as an advent. And I would really like to think that I might have these for use this coming December, but you know me, best laid plans, I get easily distracted. But I thought if I wanted to do that, then I need to knit at least 2 of these every month, and if I want to not be knitting in December, I need a couple of months where I knit 3. So I decided to try and start as I meant to go on, and I finished mitten number 1, which was almost done, not too far off being done on the first day of cast on. I then also knit mitt number 2. And I was inspired to carry on, and I thought I still had time left in January, so I thought, why not try and, you know, get ahead. And I also knit mitt number 3. Why is that so hard to say? Knit knit. So yes, I have the first 3 finished. That's not very good. I have the first 3 finished. I'm using yarns from Jamieson & Smith, is the sort of beigey brown grey colour, and it's in the Mousquet colourway, and the red is Rowan Valley Tweed in the Poppy Wold colourway. And then I also brought in a green for this third one. This is my least favourite mitt. In the pattern as written, it was a combination of white, red and grey, and I decided to bring in my green for this one, and I'm not sure it was the most successful decision, but it's knit now. And this is another Jamieson Spindrift yarn in the Leprechaun colourway, and my mitts have got slightly smaller as I've gone along. If I hold them up against each other, obviously my tension has been tightening up, so you can see the red one poking out here, and then the second one is just a few millimetres smaller than the first, and then the third one is smaller again, so I need to watch my tension a little bit. 3 mitts done for the advent. I have also cast on number 4, but I've not got any further than working the Latvian braid at the bottom, and as I say, we're like 10-11 days into February, so I need to pick that project up, get a little bit of a shift on if I want to continue my good start with that one. I don't want to fall behind at this early stage of the year, because I'll never catch up. And then the final project, which has seen a lot of work on, it's still a work in progress, but I'm getting ever closer. Towards the end of December, it was over the Christmas period, like from Christmas up until, well, now really, I decided I needed some simple knitting for when we had family visiting, and as a little bit of brain space if I needed it when I was working on the 12 cast-ons. So I picked up another one of last year's 12 cast-ons 2021, and this was the project that I cast on day 12, the Simple Stripes sweater. And I'm making mine from 5 beautiful colours of natural dyed yarn from the lovely Fee of Flourish Fibres. And when I get my finger out, I will have Fee's remaining stock coming to YarnNYarns, which is really exciting. But I've just got to take some photographs, and it's taking me forever. So sorry, Fee, if you're watching this, I will get to it. It's on my list to do before the end of this month. I must get it done. I've had that yarn for far too long. It needs to go in the shop for everyone to enjoy. When I picked this up at the end of December, I had literally just split for the sleeves. So in the last sort of 5-6 weeks, I have finished the body, although I have some concerns about this folded over hem, which keeps flipping up. More about that in the project vlog that will be to come, but I'm hoping this will block sufficiently that the flipping will stop. And yeah, I'm now working on the sleeves. So I have actually knit a couple of stripes of these sleeves in February. So I'm cheating slightly, but if I don't show you this now, hopefully by the time we get to the end of the month, it'll be a finished object. That's the plan. And I'm knitting my sleeves concurrently. I don't have enough pairs of needles or enough needle tips in this size to have needles on the go on both sides of this. So I'm swapping the needles over every couple of stripes so that they're making progress at the same rate. And I've only got a few more decreases left, and it's just simple round and round stocking it. So hopefully over the coming couple of weeks I'll be able to wear it finally. Yay! I've been playing Yarn Chicken, and I've just run out of yarn of this lovely sort of mid-brown colourway. I swear I must have some more of this somewhere, but I can't find it. So yeah, I've just worked 2 stripes on the sleeve in that yarn, and I'm hoping I can finish the sleeves before I need to get to this yarn again, because otherwise I might have shorter sleeves than anticipated, or I might be out of sync with my stripe sequence. We shall see. I'm going to cross that bridge. I'm trying to ignore that problem for now and see what happens. Right, that's it. That's everything. I have no idea how long this video is because I've recorded it in sort of shorter chunks as I've been gathering various things. So yeah, that was quite a lot to talk about. I'm feeling a bit dry-mouthed now, so I need to go make myself a cup of tea. And then I shall get to do editing and hopefully get this up on YouTube for you. So yeah, please do let me know in the comments below, what did you work on in January after the 12 cast-ons? I know a lot of you joined in with that, which made it just such a fun experience for me this year. So yeah, what did you decide to work on after your cast-ons were finished, if you participated? If you didn't participate, which of your whips were you working on? Please do let me know in the comments below. I always love to be inspired by your making and hear about what you have been up to. And don't forget also to let me know if you'd be interested in picking one of my projects for March. Also make sure that you leave that in your comment so that I can add you into the randomizer for that. I'm sure there'll be at least one more video, if not 2, coming up before we get to that. So I hope you will join me for the next video. But until we do get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now. Bye.